start going really dark right away and you're not sure where measurement is, then you're gonna have to erase and pick it back up again. Then it's not so good because that's gonna be really hard to erase. But if you have like a sketch line before, and then you lay down the darker line afterwards, like what I'm doing right now, and I'm trying to right now I'm rendering or shading the lower eyelid, so you can see a little bit of a shadow in there. And then in the eye socket, in between the crease above the eyes, or where the where the upper eyelid folding in, you can see a lot of shadow, but you can still see the crease because the shadow is not that dark. It depends. If you have a really harsh lighting, you might not be able to see the crease at all. And within the eyeball itself, inside, you have the eyelash, right? And the eyelash usually casts the shadow when it hits the light. Usually the lighting came from above, and when it catches the light, usually on on top of your eyeballs that is visible, is gonna receive the shadow. So usually from the top to bottom is gonna be darker on the top of the eyes, and it's get light on the bottom. And then usually the eyeball itself are really reflective, so when the lights came and hit, you're gonna have the spot of where the light had the direction is, and that's why you have the highlight on your iris. And now I'm rendering inside the eyes, and the eyeballs, if you paint or you draw, they're not that white. They're gonna be going to be the color as close to the shade or the value of the skin of the person itself. So it's not that it not necessarily has to be white. So, and that's most of the time is a misconception, and you kind of leave it white, and that's why sometimes it doesn't look real. So it looks kind of, oh, why is the eye popping in the face, and it kind of look a little fake. And now I'm going in and trying to render the iris. And if you notice how I render the iris, on the iris, from the pupil, from the middle, you kind of like render it like a ray, or like a drawing it out to the outer spot, and kind of like make it sort of circular along with it. As you look at someone's iris, you see that there's a line that came from the middle toward outside, and it's kind of like a ray shooting out. I mean, bunch of lines, rays shooting out. And now I'm trying to create, or what we call this is we call these layers. You just keep building up layers to make a certain part of the drawing darker. So now I'm making as it looks like the eyebrows look really dark before because everything looks light. So as you're building your drawing up, it's kind of you're building it to the mid-tone. Then as you progress, you're gonna have to putting the dark tone into the darker tone by building it up, like building up on top layers. And the more you build up, the darker it's gonna get, and you keep building it up until it get really dark, and you leave certain spot to be really light, like you're in the middle of on top of the eye in the middle. I kind of leave it light because I know that area is gonna be lighter than most of the area, but it's not gonna be as white as the paper that I'm drawing. So I'm probably gonna build up some layer on top of it later. So that's a kneaded eraser I'm using right now. It's very useful when you want to pick up the graphite, or to kind of make your picture clean. And now I'm building it up. So now it's get really dark, and as you know, within the iris, the pupil are really dark, almost black. So now, and I kind of add some texture onto the eyebrows, like adding some sort of like a a hair that coming off to kind of mimic the hairline of the eyebrows that coming in. Not necessarily you have to draw every single hairline. You just have to give it a suggestive, like, hey, there's something there. And also on the eyelash, you don't really have to draw like every single eyelash. You just have to give it a suggestive shape, like what I'm doing right now. You can see a little dark spot kind of flare out and taper in the end, so it looks like an eyelash. And also down on the bottom, on the lower eyelid also. And then there's a corner of the eyes. This part is kind of tricky also. There's you can see some pinkish skin on the corner of your eyes, that where your tears and tears hole and things like that. And now I'm rendering part of the muscle that are lower than the lower eyelid, and it's kind of, you have that lighter tone. So that's pretty much how to draw the eyes. And most of the time, it like, I've been drawing for a long time, probably over decades, 15 years professionally, probably 10 years, but I always forgot the most basic thing. Like, most of the time, if people want to learn how to draw, they'll probably start with the eyes. So I think back in the day, yeah, that's kind of makes sense, but nowadays it's kind of doesn't make sense to me to. So sometimes when I fix stuff, I just kind of erase it, and if some things go off and on. And what I'm saying is nowadays it doesn't really make sense to me to make just a tutorial how to draw the eyes, because everything kind of go together. What's you make the purpose of trying to draw the eyes so that you can draw the rest of the face. But anyways, I will have like this very basic tutorial how to draw eye, nose, and lips, mouth, and everything on my channel, and these are basic tutorial basically for a beginner. And now using the kneaded eraser, you can like make it into the pointy little spot, and you kind of dip it in right there. You can't see the pointy spot, I forgot to show you, but you can pick off the really small tiny spot that you want to pick and make it kind of lighter in value. So anyways, you can watch some of the video on my channel. There's a nose, lips, and the whole portrait, things like that. And then also if you want to go more advanced, there's a digital painting tutorial. So, and around the edge of the iris, it usually get pretty dark, so now I'm going to add some darker value there. And I can